Well, it's Michael L. Dublin Sr. here again in another session of Learning to Live Now. There is such a strong desire to live someplace else. We tend to have this desire to go to heaven or some heavenly place, and often we miss the opportunity to live where we are now. So then I'm encouraging you in this session to continue your journey. That journey requires answering some hard questions. And sometimes they're hard, sometimes they're fairly easy, but if you truly do not run from them, but answer these questions, it will truly help you to learn to live now. One of the key components of me sharing is that I'm under the belief that most people are not awake, that we live our lives either sleep or we live our lives dead. We don't know what life actually is. And I'm sharing that from the perspective of Christianity, religion, psychology, psychiatry, and my own experiences. I've shared with you as a Michael L. Dublin Sr. that I'm also a husband, father, grandfather, pastor. I am a number of things, colleague and co-worker and advisor. And I'm a guy who made a tremendous amount of mistakes and poor choices, but also made some good choices and still delights in arriving at today. When I say that we are unaware, you can answer that more yourself. It's not an accusation. It's an observation of how we live our lives. And the tremendous reading that I do still indicates the same thing. Life is tough, it's mysterious, and we don't often know what the real issues are. We don't know how to deal with them. And so we just get to a particular place and we're unaware of them. So there's two concepts that I want to deal with you in learning to live now. And one is your mindset. We all at a very early age began to believe some things that have come to us from our parents or the people who raised us, and not and the environment in which we've come, and we have our own intellect we were born with, our personalities we were born with that are being shaped, and then we have social, political, economic beliefs in an environment and a culture that's affecting us. So we don't just arrive at adulthood thinking that what we think and how we see life is all there is. No, you're really shaped by forces seen and unseen that are known and unknown, and everybody is that way. And we're just adamant about I have my own mind, I do my own thinking, I have my own beliefs, but sorry to tell you, no, you got them from somewhere. As much as you think you own them, you got them and you made them yours, but they came to you outside of you. And that's how we live our lives. Once we become aware, then we become awakened to the possibilities of life. There's so much to live. It's just a getting up in the day that no matter what set of outside circumstances, your well is inside you, the way that you handle things. But it's a lifelong battle to get there. You don't wake up one day and say, now I'm going to be aware and everything is going to change. No, you have to deal with who you are and who you've been. And that's a struggle, and that's also a foundation from which to build. We're not at all implying that everything was negative. No, the things, though, that have served you well, you can always build on those things. So with that in mind, we want to continue to pursue this pathway of becoming aware of who we are, not allowing unawareness to determine all of our lives. And everything that you do, every belief you had comes from somewhere. So subsequently, it leads us as a general rule to one or two mindsets: a growth mindset or a mindset that is expanding. It's a fixed mind. Now, I say that the opposite: the growth mindset, which is expanding, or a fixed mindset that has learned all it thinks it needs to learn and wants to stay there out of fear, out of so many other barriers, out of a lack of purpose in life. And when one does not have a purpose, a fixed mind works to keep them with their tradition and the things that they have already believed, but nothing beyond that. It's a fear-based way of living, and it feeds into the sleepwalk, into the unawareness of who we are and how we're unable to stop patterns of behavior that is destructive to ourselves and to our loved ones and to everybody around us. It helps us, keeps us boxed in. You'd be like a person who is in prison and comes out into the main yard out of their cell and declare themselves free. No more prison, no war. Nobody's going to tell me what to do, but they're still in the prison yard. They have no concept that freedom lies on the other side of the barbed wire, on the other side of the fence, where you can determine where you go to bed, when you go to bed, and all of the other things. So, in fact, many prisoners return. The recidivism rate is high among some because they don't know how to function outside of that type of life. And sometimes we're that way and have no clue. We're unaware of the fact that we're living in our own prison that was imposed on us, and also we've learned to be comfortable with. We don't particularly want to meet many people. We don't want to eat anything different. We don't want to live any other place. We don't want to go to another country. We don't want to go to another state. We just want to be left alone to be who we are. If that's what you see as life, then this is not for you. But I'm encouraging you to want to live and not to have somebody in your family, somebody who helped shape you, be determined to be that for you and in you, that they cannot live their lives vicariously through you, and you can't live your life vicariously through anybody else, so that you become free and you'll have a growth mindset and you're excited about learning. I want to focus in now on the topic of God. I don't know how you think, what your encounter is, and what your thoughts, but do you know? Do you understand when you say God? Do you understand what you're actually saying? You say, no, but I have faith. Well, then do you have faith? Even faith requires some baseline of knowledge. Often I will hear people at a funeral say that when their loved one died, well, God don't make no mistakes. God wanted that person more than we needed him. He needed him. So then God becomes this guy who's killing people with cancer and car wrecks and stuff because he needed these particular people, or he doesn't make any mistakes because he's walking around killing people. And if that's your concept of God, your mindset is going to be one of sleeping and one of unawareness of how the world actually works. So God, as you know and understand God, is a limitation because we can't know and understand even the concept of God. So the search becomes critical. That you should never ever be settled, no matter whether you go to church or whether you go to the mosque or the temple or go nowhere, and you feel like and think that what you feel and what you think is all there is. It is not. It is much, much more to be explored, and you will only know how to define God as you continue to explore God. Often people get their feelings hurt and they walk away from church. They're all churched out and they just can't handle it. Well, often the people in church don't know God either. They know of God and they know their tradition, but they too have accepted an unawareness and a sleep through life attitude and a fixed mindset, and they're not bad people at all. And we're not saying that. But to find life and to find out who you are and to become awake, it just requires some decisions to go against the grain of holding everybody else accountable and responsible for who you are. Once you become responsible, I shared with you in the book of John where Jesus asked this man at the well, wilt thou be made whole? Do you want to get whole? Do you want to be responsible for yourself? Because you've been here over 30 years right by the pool. And if you haven't inched your way in here now, it tells us that you may not be interested in getting in there. But once I put you into this wholeness and you're healed, you're going to be accountable. You can't blame anybody else. And to live our lives without blaming other people, that takes some doing. Because we will often say, man, this person did that person did that, or you call yourself crazy or whatever else. No, you haven't taken on the responsibility for your actions. Because sometimes when you're asleep, you hurt people, you fail to, in fact, do the things that will get you where you need to go. And any myriad of things that happen. And after a while, you become delusion where you're not responsible, you're not aware, you lie to yourself, and you'll end up in a place where you're just existing, and you'll continue to do the things that you've always done, even when they're detrimental. And you won't know how to get out of it because you haven't awakened and you haven't taken the pathway to discovery. So God gives you the pathway to discovery of who you are, what you are, and in this very fleeting world to set you free so that you can enjoy the power of having been here and not regret so much everything that happens to you. I just want to challenge you to learn to live now. So let me ask you these questions. Do you know why you exist? Is there a significance to your life in reality? What is the significance? What is the point of your life? Not life in general, but yours. What is the specific thing that you know and you've discovered about life? And what does that mean? So I think it was Viktor Frankl that in his book, Man's Search for Meaning, that said we can live with any what if we have a how, if we have a why, rather, a why. So why do you live? Why do you exist? What is the specific purpose? Because you say that God, you believe God. So what is your God-given purpose or your God-derived purpose? What have you learned from God about your purpose? And then I want to know who taught you what you know about your purpose in God. And I'm kind of straying here because there's so much on my mind, but spirituality, religion, all of those things are maybe a part of you got a little bit more sophisticated argument, but even at that, where did it come from? Have you confirmed it? Are you doubtful? Are you able to express your doubts about the existence of God? Are you able to express your doubts about the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus Christ? And are you healthy enough to be able to ask those questions and still search for the answers that will satisfy you and make your purpose meaningful? What is your purpose? What is your significance? Why are you wanting to wake up? Why do you need to be awakened and to actually be alive to live this life? So then are you transcending? Are you traditional and staying just where you are? Traditions have their place, but does it help you transcend? Are you transcending? Are you going from one place to the other? What are your spiritual beliefs? If you could give a list of your beliefs in its simplest terms, what are your spiritual beliefs? And if you feel more comfortable saying your Christian beliefs, your religious beliefs, I don't care. The question is, what are they? Can you articulate them? And how then do you put them into practice? How do you put your beliefs into practice? For example, Jesus said, if you have something against someone, go to them alone. And then he says, have this discussion. He also says that if you're about to give your gift and recognize that somebody has something against you, go to them alone. So the question that I'm asking you is, when do you practice what your religious beliefs are, your spiritual beliefs? Because what specifically they are meaningless. You're still asleep and you're unaware of life and you've got a fixed mindset unless you're literally practicing them. So do you have a tendency to hold things in and not allow reconciliation and healing because you've already determined the person is not worth it, or they won't listen to you, or you've approached them in the past, or you're ashamed, or you're angry? Well, that's not practicing your religion, and it won't help you then find your significance and your purpose. That's a hindrance. And that's also that closed mindset that does not allow you to grow. You have to follow and believe that which you say you believe. Jesus asked the question, why do you call me Lord, Lord, and do not do what I say? It's a significant question. What is the point of getting up, going to church? Now you may not be getting up, watching church, sending in your contribution or whatever, and don't do a single thing that God says, and say, "I believe God, I believe in God." Well, that's kind of a contradiction, and it's very elementary. You don't have a choice. If you're going to be awake and you'll search for God, you cannot do those things as a practice. Everybody has moments like that, but that just simply cannot be your practice. And you know it. It is not rewarding, it's not fulfilling, and your life becomes empty. So, when do you feel most connected to God? When do you feel most connected? Is it the ocean? Is it the mountains? Is when you're listening to music? Music soothes my soul. I do a lot of listening to music, and it brings up in me something bigger than myself. Can you just, in any setting that you're in, feel the presence of God? Do you yearn for the presence of God? So in your beliefs about God, do you believe God? And where is God? Who is God? What form is God? The Bible actually says God is spirit. Well, how does that become our Father? What does all of that mean? And I'm asking you then to study and to follow and contemplate, because you're learning to live now. Now, you want to go to heaven one day, and you have this imagination that you're going to be at this throne based on revelation. But all of that is really showing you symbols. It is telling you things so that your mind can grasp. But heaven and the life after is not something the mind can grasp. You're not going somewhere because you want to go to some streets of gold. Gold is what gets us into trouble anyway. So what we're looking for deep inside is connection. When do you feel most connected to God? What time of the day? What time of night? What's actually going on? So to determine whether you're awake or not, when do you most feel connected to God? Do you follow any particular tradition, and do you stretch that tradition so that what you've learned now? For example, I go to church, I pastor a church, but I'm never going to allow myself to be limited by church. I've stated that before, and I'm telling you now, church is not going to determine who and what I am. I love the church. I love all of the people, and I love some of them a lot more than I love the others. But at the end of the day, they're not going to determine who and what I am. They impact me, but they cannot determine who and what I am, because my life must be bigger than any individual person. And that's out of a search, and that's out of a need to not be taken aside or taken under or treated poorly to the point that it takes away my self-respect and my self-dignity. All of those things can happen at church, but I've had the experience of people attempting that. But my belief and trust in the God that I understand, and I won't even share that with you, although I'm a pastor of a church, my beliefs are much broader and much, much bigger than that. And whenever I step out of that for a moment, I find myself having given my self-respect away, because that's not who I am. And this is who I am, in the one who is anchored in a search, in a divine search for God. And the scriptures actually said, greater is he that's in you than he that's in the world. I want that to be real. That has to be real. It has to be. And it's what keeps me going every day of my life. So then I'm asking you, do you follow a particular practice? Is that something that you do? And here's the question. How committed are you to those practices? When you give thanks for food, do you actually think about the food that's in front of you? Do you actually give thanks? And do you thank God for taste, smell, hearing, feeling, for all that has happened in your life? Is there one that you are bowing down that has provided so richly for you to be able to earn a living, for you to be able to have that food? Does it matter that other people don't have it? Every now and then it should cross your mind of how great a blessing you have today. But what are those practices? How often are you reading any religious text? You cannot go somewhere on a Sunday and listen to somebody give you their teaching, and that's all there is. That's entertainment. And there you go, living your life through a person who means well. We pastors and preachers, we mean well, we're giving you our best, but oh my goodness, it should be pointing you to Christ Jesus. If we're not pointing you to Christ Jesus, or if we're not pointing you out beyond us and ourselves, if our own little narrow church is all we have to offer out of 9 billion people, that's so pathetic and so sad, so very sad. Nonetheless, there are people that is the only way they can survive. So I'm not knocking that. I'm saying please don't think you're awake if the few people in the pews or chairs around you is the only persons that you believe are part of God's creation. Do you ever check out the different trees, plants, rocks, animals? Where do you worship beyond the Sunday morning? This is what we're asking you. So if you're going to have a growth mindset, God cannot be put in some box. You have to continue to search every moment of your life. And God will reveal what God needs to reveal, however God reveals it. And when somebody challenges you and say, there is no God, you don't even have to argue with them. You just don't, because you already know that people believe that. And what they're actually asking you to do is use some way that's earthly to prove something that you don't have to prove. The greatest proof for God, though, is how do you live and what are your commitments? Are you in this growth mindset with God? Have you grown? Have you changed? And I'm not talking about just getting so old you can't do the stuff you used to do, but I'm talking about growth and changing. How do you share your trust and your belief in God, your hope in God, your spiritual development? How specifically do you share it? When specifically do you share it? How involved is your family in what you believe and how you believe what you believe? What are 3 qualities that as you've developed as a direct result of your search for God, of your becoming aware? 3 qualities. You were once this way, but you are no longer like that. This is who you are. What are the things you value most? For example, justice. What does justice mean to you? Generosity. What does that mean to you? Honest. How honest are you? Can people depend on you? Can people know that the person that's sitting next to them or across from them and that's sharing is being honest and open with them? The Bible tells us about Jesus seeing Thomas, and he said, look, there is one who has no guile, no deceit. He's not going to fool you. You may not like what he has to say, but he's not going to fool you. How real are you as a result of your search for God, your belief in God, and your growth mindset? And how deeply are those values expressed with your friends and your loved ones and your colleagues and people you encounter? Are you known as a person that, look, I don't agree with everything this person says, but I know when they speak it, they mean it, and I believe that they believe what they're saying. I don't have to worry about this person acts this way in the house, this way on the beach, and this way on school campus, and this way at another place. They're just who they are. Isn't that something when you have a purposeful life and you realize that I'm awake? Now, there was a time I was asleep and I would find myself doing things out of character, but they were actually consistent with a character at that time. But if I am trusting God and I'm seeking God and I'm searching God and searching for God as well as searching God, then there are things I just don't do anymore. That's just not me. I share with people all the time. Step back sometime, step outside of yourself, and imagine some of the things that you have done that are deceitful, things that hurt and wound other people, things that you have claimed that came from your parents or your upbringing or some other set of circumstances. But they are things that you just have held on to, and they became a way of life. And those things drove you rather than you driving them. You thought you were deceiving other people, but now you are being deceived by your own self. This happens. That's why Jeremiah 17:9 says the heart is desperate. It's wicked. It's beyond understanding. Doesn't mean it can't be changed, but in our search for Christ or search for God, however you do it, it reveals who we really are, but also who else we want to be. That's the growth mindset. That's waking up. We've all done things terrible, and most likely we all have. I know I have things I'm not proud of, but I'm just not living the rest of my life that way. I've always been the person that what you see is what you get. And no matter what weakness or whatever issues I have to deal with, that's something that I've had for a character ever since I was a child. Because I was told I was going to be a preacher ever since I was very, very small. And one of the things I've always cultivated in myself, even when I didn't have much maturity, was tell the truth, be truthful. Just don't hurt people. Just don't do that. And when you do acknowledge it, and that's when you know that you are serving God. When you can say, yes, I did that. I know I did that. And I know I should not have done that. And if I had to do it all over again, I wouldn't do it. And in the future, I'm simply not going to do that. I value any relationships coming up. I may lose these, but the ones that I have coming, that won't be the issue. Because my search for God, my becoming aware of my closed mindset that can be destructive, has been now exposed to me. I will teach you the truth. You will seek the truth, and truth will set you free. That promise then is a promise that Jesus made. So whatever your religious beliefs are, how do they drive what you do? So which of the qualities of patience, love, forgiveness, commitment, happiness, joy, which of those are your driving force? Because when you're searching God and searching for God, you have some of that at some level. And which of these are you most lacking in? Are you lacking in love and compassion and patience, tolerance, forgiveness, contentment, and happiness? Don't beat yourself up. But if you can answer the question, that's where you are, then you can look for the pathway through, in fact, your religious tradition, through the Word of God as you understand it, and through actions. And when the moment comes, when you have to make a decision that you're not going to deceive or hurt another person, because sometimes people are fragile, no matter how they look, they've overcome a lot. And when they put out there a need for you and they think you're the one or you're one of the few, that person may be destroyed. I found myself to be wounded, but I also find myself to not be so far off from my compassion and my love and forgiveness that I can't be made whole and leave the other person whole. And that's just where I am, but that's God's doing. That doesn't come from me. And so I want to cultivate this. So here's the next question, and then we're going to be kind of wrapping this up. How do you cultivate a relationship with God? And how do you cultivate an expression of your relationship with God in your relationship with others? Start in your household. How do you really present yourself godly? And how compassionate, how forgiving, how much are you appreciative of every member of your household? That's something good in every one of us and every one of them. You might, and I don't remember where I got this from, but I do know when I went to the Legacy Museum that there was a t-shirt I have that says that the most of us are better than the worst things that we've ever done. That's certainly a biblical teaching. It's definitely that. So that applies to the other people in your household, other people on your job, the other people in your church, and wherever you are. And whatever you do, if you truly believe that, then don't participate in anything or do anything out of character that takes even that away from them, so that when they're thinking about the worst things, they don't have to always have a memory of you. And I'm hoping that in your search for God and that growth mindset, that you're growing with God and you become aware. So to kind of wrap this up, I'm asking you, and you're learning to live now. Who is God? Where is God? But who is God within you? And where is God within you? And where is this pathway leading you? And what is the significance of this relationship with God that it allows you and challenges you and pushes you to learn to live now? Hey, I'm trying to get used to this subscribe button. So if you like it, hit the subscribe button and stuff like that so that this has the meaning for YouTube that it has. And I'll see a lot of these YouTube and people say subscribe and I never do it. So I don't have too much of anything else to be able to say because I don't know how to do it. But I'm asking, I don't know how to get you to subscribe, but the like button and all the other stuff. But if you feel so compelled to do so, if this has meaning, then do that. Michael L. Dublin Sr. Signing off saying, please, whatever you do, learn to live now.